Welcome to the Deep Dive. You sent us this YouTube video, Pastor Jerry Eze's sermon, The Lord is Not Done, first service, 24th November 2024. And wow, the energy.
It really is something.
Yeah, you can feel it even through the screen.
Absolutely. It's not just excitement either. There's real hope building as the sermon goes on. You can feel the anticipation.
It's pretty incredible. And right from the start, Pastor Eze keeps repeating this phrase, God is not done yet, over and over and over.
Oh yeah. He uses repetition a lot.
Yeah, like I almost felt hypnotized. What's the, I guess, strategy behind repeating it like that?
Well, repetition is a very powerful rhetorical tool. And I think Eze uses it masterfully here. It's not just about emphasizing the message. It creates this rhythm, almost like a heartbeat that pulls you in. And each time he says, God is not done yet, it reinforces that, there's more to come. There's something big about to happen.
Yeah, I get the rhythm part, but isn't it a little obvious? Like if you believe in God, you already kind of assume he's not done, right? So why keep saying it?
That's a good question. I think it's important to think about the audience here. These are people coming to church looking for guidance. Maybe they're facing challenges in their lives. So when they hear God is not done yet, it gives them hope. It's a promise that things can change, that there's a plan. Even if you're struggling now, there's a brighter future.
So it's more like a motivational mantra almost,
Yeah.
not just a theological statement, right?
Exactly. It's about bolstering faith and creating the sense of anticipation, And he doesn't just use words either. Pastor Eze paints these incredible pictures with his language when he talks about reversing ambulances, breaking the power of like arthritis. I mean, it's vivid. It's almost cinematic.
It definitely is. It's not your typical Sunday sermon, It's like he's taking these abstract spiritual concepts and making them super concrete, relatable, I guess.
Right. He's using imagery that resonates with their lives, their experiences. And this whole reversal thing is really powerful. It's not just about like improvement. It's about completely undoing a negative situation. It's kind of, it almost gives you chills.
It really does. One thing that stood out to me was how he even called challenges good problems. It's like he's turning the idea of adversity completely on its head.
Absolutely. And this idea of reframing adversity is really at the core of what's called the prosperity gospel, a theological movement that's become very, very popular, especially in charismatic churches.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of the prosperity gospel, but I'm not sure I totally understand it.
Yeah, it can be kind of hard to grasp, but basically it emphasizes faith and positive thinking as ways to achieve material and spiritual abundance. So the idea is that God rewards faith with blessings, and that includes things like health and wealth, success, not just in the afterlife.
So it's about thriving in this life too, not just getting into heaven.
Exactly. And that's why you see this focus on reframing adversity, because if you believe God wants to bless you, then challenges are just opportunities for growth or even divine intervention.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
It is. So when Pastor Eze talks about good problems, he's really tapping into this prosperity gospel framework.
That makes sense. It's a really clever way to address like the age-old question of why bad things happen,
Yeah.
especially if you're a believer.
Right. Instead of dwelling on the problem itself, he shifts the focus to the good that could come from it, the potential.
Yeah, like don't just endure it, find the blessing. Okay, that's pretty insightful.
And from there, he goes right into Psalm 23, and he focuses a lot on the imagery of the shepherd and the sheep. It's like he's building this tapestry of hope and faith, drawing on scripture and personal stories and those really powerful metaphors.
Yeah, I noticed how much time he spent on that psalm. He talked about chewing on the word and how our environment will actually reflect what we take in spiritually.
Right, and that also goes back to the prosperity gospel and how it emphasizes the power of words and thoughts to actually shape our reality.
So chewing on the word is more than just reading the Bible. It's about like internalizing it and letting those words affect how you think and then eventually your actual life.
Exactly. Aligning your thoughts and beliefs with God's promises and then expecting those promises to become real in your everyday life.
That's
It
fascinating.
really is.
And he even used this analogy of sheep, ruminating, like how they lie down to digest their food.
Oh, yes.
And he said that sometimes God makes us lie down, not to punish us, but to let those spiritual lessons sink in. I thought that was really interesting.
It is. It's a great way to look at those times when we feel stuck or things aren't moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like instead of seeing them as setbacks, he's saying they're actually opportunities for us to change on the inside, you know? Like sometimes you feel stuck, but later you realize you were learning something really important.
It's like he's saying, don't fight the downtime, use it to go deeper, which is kind of counterintuitive, but it makes sense.
It does, doesn't it? And it probably resonates a lot with people who are struggling. It gives them permission to be still and just trust that, even when things are quiet, God is still working.
Yeah, that's really comforting. It's definitely a different way of thinking about faith and suffering.
It is. It's a lot more nuanced than what you usually hear. And then he brings up this whole other idea of soul restoration. He said that past trauma can hold us back from experiencing God's blessings. It's like he's going deeper than just surface level stuff. He's talking about those deeper wounds that people carry around. He is. And it shows how important personal testimony and emotional healing are within the charismatic tradition. By acknowledging those past hurts, he creates a space where people can be vulnerable, and he positions God as the source of healing.
So it's not all just positive thinking then. It's about dealing with those deeper wounds that might be like blocking people from faith.
Exactly. It's about wholeness, not just outward prosperity. And it really adds another layer to his message. It shows that faith isn't just about believing in God. It's about believing in yourself
Yeah.
and your ability to heal.
This is getting really interesting. It's like he's built this whole foundation of hope and resilience and healing. I can't wait to see where he goes next.
Me neither. Let's dive into the next part and find out. As we move into this next part of the sermon, I feel like the energy really shifts. He's laid this groundwork of inner transformation, and now it's all about how that actually manifests outwardly in our lives.
Yes, it's like he's saying, okay, you've done the work on the inside, now let's see what happens on the outside. And there's this really cool visual metaphor he uses talking about hanging things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he says you'll stop hanging your anxieties, your problems. Instead, you'll start hanging testimonies of like God's goodness.
Wow, that's powerful imagery. Like he's giving them something concrete to do.
Right.
Taking down those symbols of worry and replacing them with faith.
Right. But it's also deeper than that, don't you think? Remember how we were talking about the power of words in the prosperity gospel?
Oh, absolutely.
This hanging metaphor, it's a perfect example. Like he's saying, speak your blessings into existence, declare them out loud.
Yeah, like you can actually create good things just by believing in them and speaking them. He really emphasizes how quickly things can change, too.
Oh, yeah. Like he said something about 10 or 20 years of progress happening in just 1 week.
Exactly. That's very typical of charismatic preaching, this focus on immediate, even supernatural breakthroughs, and it can be really, really compelling, especially for people who are desperate for change.
It's like he's saying, don't settle for small steps. Expect miracles.
Exactly. And there's this real sense of urgency he injects into it. Like when he says, no one can stop God, or the Lord has stretched forth his hand and who can turn it back. It's bold.
It is. It's almost like defiant.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to that deep desire we all have for something bigger than ourselves to step in and make things right, especially when we feel powerless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he also talks about how helpers will come,
Yeah.
like God will send people to support you.
Right. That's another really important part of this, the sense of community and belonging. It's not just you and God. It's being part of something bigger, a group of people who get you.
I like that. It's like a support system. And then he starts getting really specific, calling out different ailments like enlarged spleens, myopia, arthritis, even blood disorders. It felt very personal.
I thought so too. Like he was speaking directly to people in the audience who might be struggling with those exact things. It creates a real sense of intimacy. And by saying that God can heal them, he's offering hope, reminding them that miracles are possible.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting how he even addresses people who might be skeptical, He even says, even if you don't have faith, my faith is enough for you. It's like he's covering everyone with his belief, whether they have their own or not.
It's a really clever way of acknowledging doubt without dismissing it. Like he's saying, it's okay if you don't believe, I believe enough for both of us.
It's very inclusive.
Yeah.
And then he gets even more specific. Like he says that in the next 11 days, things will happen that will make people shout, God is not done yet. It's like he's setting a deadline for miracles.
He's building anticipation, for sure. And that fits right in with this emphasis on experiencing God's power in the here and now, not some vague promise, but actual visible change right now.
It's exciting. And to illustrate this, he uses a really cool analogy about a sheep.
A sheep.
Yeah, he asks the audience to imagine a sheep saying, "I shall not want." He's saying that if a sheep can say that, it means it has everything it needs,
Yeah.
food, water, safety.
That's a great way to put it. He takes this complex theological concept of God's provision and makes it relatable, like something we can all understand.
Right. It's like, look, if God can take care of a sheep, imagine what he can do for you. But then he takes it a step further. He connects, "I shall not want," to the spiritual realm too. Like when you're walking in faith, you won't lack anything you need spiritually or emotionally.
It's a deeper level of provision, isn't it?
It is. Like true abundance isn't just about stuff. It's about like feeling whole,
Yeah.
complete, having peace.
Yeah, yeah. And then he goes back to Psalm 23 again, talking about the sheep lying down in green pastures.
I noticed that. It's like he's tying everything together, this idea of faith, provision, and rest.
Hmm.
And he reminds them again that sometimes God makes us lie down, not to punish us, but to learn the lessons we need.
He keeps coming back to this lying down thing, doesn't he? It's interesting.
Yeah, like he knows some people might be resistant to it. They think stillness means nothing's happening. But he's saying, no, sometimes the biggest changes happen in those quiet moments.
It's true, though. Sometimes you need to be still to really grow.
And he also points out that even when the sheep is lying down, the shepherd is still there, watching over it, waiting for it to be ready to move.
It's a nice image, isn't it? Like, God's always there, even when we feel lost or stuck.
Exactly. And he says this lying down isn't punishment. It's time for reflection, like figuring out what's true and what's not. He even says you can figure out who your true friends are in those quiet times.
Oh, interesting. So it's like inner stillness leads to outer clarity, too. You can see things more clearly.
I think so. It's like he's saying, quiet the noise inside so you can really see what's going on around you. And then, bam, he hits you with this powerful phrase, "He restoreth my soul."
Oh, wow.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Because he talks about how, trauma, betrayals, disappointments, all that stuff, it wounds the soul. And that affects how we think, how we see ourselves, how we interact with the world.
He's really acknowledging the pain that people carry. And he's not shying away from it, He goes right to the heart of it. And then he offers God as the healer, the one who can fix those deep wounds.
It's powerful. He even talks about how those past hurts can make us believe lies about ourselves. Like that we're failures, we're not good enough, we're unlovable. And then he counters those lies with the truth.
It's like he's saying, don't believe those lies. You are loved. You are valuable.
Yes. And to really drive it home, he tells the story about himself. He talks about how he struggled with math in school and how that made him feel about his abilities.
Oh, wow. So he's getting personal.
He is. It's like he's saying, I get it. I've been there too.
Yeah.
It makes him seem more human.
It does. And it makes his message more relatable. Like if he can overcome his struggles, maybe we can too.
Right. He goes on to say that when your soul is restored, you're not defined by those past experiences anymore. You're free to be who God created you to be.
It's like a total transformation.
It is. And then he connects this to renewing the mind. He says that when your mind is renewed, you can see God's plan for your life, even when things look bad.
It's like choosing to focus on the positive, even when it's hard. Choosing to believe in a better future.
Exactly. Wow, he's covered so much in this sermon. It's like a roadmap for a whole new way of living,
It is. And it's presented in such a captivating way. I can't wait to see how he wraps it all up.
Me neither. Let's dive into the conclusion. So we've talked about all these different pieces, inner transformation, outward change, healing the soul, renewing the mind. It's like Pastor Eze is giving us all these tools, but what's he actually building towards?
Well, that's what makes this sermon so powerful.
Yeah.
He doesn't just throw these ideas out there. He actually brings them all together in this final part. It's almost like a prophetic call to action.
It definitely gets really intense. He tells everyone to stand up and declare with everything they have that God is not done yet. It's like he's unleashing this wave of belief, this expectation over everyone.
Yeah, it's not just talking anymore, it's doing something. He's giving them permission to own this belief, to live it out. And he specifically connects it to the year 2025.
Oh, yeah. He talks about God revealing plans, raising up these pillars, people who'll support and guide. It's like a whole new season is coming.
It is a season of breakthroughs, of moving forward, and he gets specific too. Like, remember how he said that in the next 11 days, things will happen that prove God is working?
Oh yeah, it's like he's putting a deadline on miracles.
It might sound crazy, but that's kind of what charismatic preaching is all about, you know? Seeing God's power in real life right now, not just someday in the future.
And he keeps bringing it back to that core message, God is not done yet. It's like the foundation of the whole sermon.
It is. It ties everything together. And it's not just a reminder, it's almost a dare. Like he's challenging everyone to really believe it, to expect it.
By the end of the sermon, I felt like I could do anything. But it wasn't just hype either. He talked about real stuff too, like how to deal with past hurt, how to change your thinking. It's like a whole different way of looking at faith.
Exactly. It's not just about feeling good or getting rich. It's about dealing with the whole person, their heart, their mind, their spirit, and then adding this layer of hope on top of it.
This deep dive has been pretty amazing. We started with this super high-energy sermon. We talked about repetition, metaphors, the prosperity gospel, good problems, even sheep.
I know. We covered a lot of ground. Psalm 23, spiritual food, soul restoration. We even talked about how to renew your mind.
It's been fascinating. We got to see what makes this kind of faith so powerful, so attractive to people. It's about feeling connected, changing from the inside out, and believing that God can do anything.
Yeah, it's really inspiring.
And, as we wrap up, I keep thinking about that challenge Pastor Eze gave to declare that God is not done yet. But he also said that that what we feed ourselves spiritually shows up in our lives. So what are you feeding yourself? What are you putting out into the world? That's something to think about this week. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.